Donald Trump under fire from Republicans and Democrats alike over his deal with Iran to end the war in that country. Today, U.S. officials released the text of the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. Officials are set to sign it on Friday, and the MOU would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It would end hostilities, and it would grant Iran the following concessions: $300 billion that would be distributed to that country through an investment fund. There is also a plan to end economic sanctions. There's also the unfreezing of Iranian assets. Plus, there will be waivers that allow Iran to sell oil on the global market. Here's the kicker. The MOU would return everything to the nuclear, quote-unquote, status quo. That means Iran's stance on its nuclear program remains virtually unchanged after a war that was ostensibly fought to limit Iran's potential as a nuclear threat in the region. Critics from the left and the right say that this deal strengthens Iran while the United States retreats without any tangible gains, despite 4 months of war, billions of dollars spent, and 13 American lives lost. Top MAGA and Fox News figures are not being shy about weighing in. Take a listen.
They're better off than they were before the hostilities began.
There's also a lot of talk about this $300 billion fund that they may soon have access to. Nobody is disputing that that is a thing.
I hate to say this. In this deal, the biggest loser is the United States and India.
You negotiate from strength. You don't give people money.
I will say that the early returns do not look wildly promising at this point.
America has given up all of its leverage in this situation.
Let's be very clear. This is the vice president's deal. It does not have support.
The regime has not changed. They're just richer.
I do have concerns about the Memorandum of Understanding.
I didn't believe it. I thought somebody was spoofing me.
Unless you were homeschooled by a day drinker, no one's confident that Iran's going to do anything.
How about the guys and gals that bled and died on our country's behalf? Well, where's their fun? I didn't see that in MOU.
This doesn't feel like a victory.
That's not all. At the conservative Drudge Report, the headlines are absolutely scathing. Iran declares total victory. Iran will control Hormuz. America in retreat. The influential Financial Times writes, quote, humiliation. Donald Trump battles claims his Iran deal is worse than Obama's. And here's the cover of Rupert Murdoch's New York Post. Love bomb, with the image of a burning American flag. At a press conference in France today, President Trump prompted even more criticism after striking an oddly soft tone on the status of Iran's nuclear program, missiles in the Middle East, and Iranian regime change. Take a listen.
Iran's position has always been that their nuclear program was for civilian purposes.
It is a little hard, though, when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. They're going to let Saudi Arabia have missiles, but they can't have them? Yes, sir. It doesn't work that way, you know. But they have a new group of leaders that I think is, actually, I think they're smarter. I think they're very smart. I think they're far less radicalized, and I think they're really good. They love their country.
Joining me now to break all of this down is Jason Johnson, professor at Morgan State University and an MS Now political analyst. Also with us is Molly Jong-Fast, a contributing writer with the New York Times and an MS Now political analyst. Jason, what to say about so much winning? It seems that the president is really desperate to get out of Iran. What do you make of that?
He's been trying to get on the off-ramp, the off-lane, whatever, for pretty much 2 weeks after this started, right?
Yeah.
This was not a path to victory. It was not going to be regime change. It wasn't going to make any oil cheaper. It has been an absolute failure from the very beginning. And the key part of this, and it's not just the Republicans being angry because they wanted regime change. Iran is stronger. And they're not just stronger because they're going to get $300 billion. Literally, It has been, and I've been researching this for a couple of days. You can see the Heritage Foundation, London School of Economics. For 30 years, American intelligence has been trying to figure out if Iran could ever close the Strait of Hormuz. It was game
Guess
theory.
what?
Yes, it was game theory. People were like, it was Schrodinger's cat. Can they do it? Can they not do it? Well, now they've proven that they can.
Yeah.
They actually have something more powerful in their arsenal than nukes. They know they can shut down the world economy with the flip of their finger, and that's what Trump has left them with, regardless of $300 billion.
So, Molly, are the critics right? Did we lose here? Are we getting anything out of this memorandum of understanding?
It is an incredible world when you have Ben Shapiro, the New York Times editorial page, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, and the cover of the New York Post in agreement. Like, that is an unusual group to be together. And the truth is...
A coalition of the willing.
Right,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
Yes. And I think there's a reason for that, and that's because the only thing that seems like a deliverable on the side of the Iranians is reopening the straits, which were open before Trump did this.
Yes.
So, Jason, are you surprised by the backlash from the extreme right wing? I mean, even his fiercest allies seem to be annoyed by all of this.
No. First off, every time I see Trump deliver a speech or Marco Rubio behind him, I just want to play like the Arrested Development music. He always looks so embarrassed and so upset that he has to sit there. Most of the people in the administration knew this wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
They knew that they didn't really have a position of leverage one way or another. But I think the criticism is from the true believers who believe some fantasy that the United States was going to turn Iran into the next Iraq, but then also the people who recognize that our leverage is weakened with so many other countries now that it makes it more difficult for us to engage in any other of these ridiculous adventures in the next 2 years.
So I'm interested in this point about Marco Rubio being so embarrassed. Who's going to own this baby? Whose baby is this?
Well, I mean, I
think who's on a book tour right now? Because that's the person who's going to have to defend this.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance will have to defend it. I mean, Ben Shapiro just said, hey, this is his particular thing. But at the end of the day, it's never Trump, right? Trump never owns anything. So it's going to, the poop is going to fall in somebody else's lap, and it's never the president.
Yeah. So, Molly, GOP Senator Bill Cassidy had this to say about the deal earlier today. Take a listen.
The details that I've seen so far look awful. This will go down as a tremendous foreign policy blunder. Iran ends up stronger. Our allies in the region are weaker. And Iran has learned that if they're willing to grab that Strait of Hormuz and choke it off, they can get the Western world to dance to their tune. I think it's a deep mistake.
All right. So, Molly, is this just sour grapes from someone who just lost his reelection bid because of the president, or is this real talk?
No. So he's part of the YOLO caucus, the group of Republican senators, and there are 3 of them who lost their Senate primaries because Trump was like, you were insufficiently loyal to me, whatever that looks like. But this guy has really been through it, too. Remember, he's a doctor who voted for RFK Jr. I mean, he's undone his life's work. Yeah. But, I think he's speaking the truth, which a lot of Republicans don't usually do or don't usually feel they can. And there should be a larger question about why that is and why he now feels liberated to say what everyone else who is got eyes is saying.
You know who also feels liberated, Jason? A president who also had a deal with Iran. Let's take a listen.
I seem to remember.
Yeah, not so long ago we had a deal with Iran. Let's take a listen to what President Obama had to say earlier this week.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place and had worked for a long stretch of time before the United States pulled out of it.
Facts?
That was a very careful way I wish he had the Key and Peele anger translator with him who would just say, this is obviously garbage, this is foolish. And I want to highlight this because this is key. While everybody is talking about their egos and being bruised and how it worked, people died. Americans died. School children died in Iran. People are sick. People will not have clean water for weeks and weeks and months and months. So it's not just, I think we always have to remember, this is not just bruised American pride and Jared Kushner not getting everything he wants. People have died whole generations and communities have been destroyed by this, and all they can talk about is whether or not somebody had a good or a better deal. And that's part of what makes this so cold and grotesque and offensive, that we can engage in these kinds of ridiculous flights of fantasy, and no one wins. And the people who suffer don't have a voice.
So Molly, Jason raises a really interesting point. This is likely to have radicalized some individuals in Iran. And it seems like in the short term, maybe gas prices will go down and maybe the president reaps the benefits of that in the midterm elections. But are we paying a longer price down the road for what all of this will ultimately engender?
Yeah, we may also still be paying that price even sooner than that. Like, there's no way to put this back in the bottle. We have a younger Ayatollah. I mean, Trump, Trump said a lot of stuff today after that long trip, and he sounded very tired. And he said, we have this better Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is younger, angrier, and by all assurances much more radicalized than his father.
He was killed in airstrikes.
Yes. And so I think that Trump, I don't know that Trump understands what he has wrought here, and I think it's quite scary, this moment we're in.
If the movie caption, this time it's personal, right? Yeah. Like, now it's not just a political argument, but also our gas prices aren't going to go down, because one of the things that's unclear in this sort of phony memorandum of understanding, which is going to be 60 more days to negotiate, is Iran may still be able to charge fees at the end of this. Yeah. So they're actually going to be making more money, and our gas prices are not going to go down, certainly not by the midterm.